This is B-movie, what do I call it? B-movie, Standoff. B-movie Standoff. We're going to put 3 movies against each other, and we're going to see who blasts the other 2 away. The first movie is The Reverend. The Reverend is a pretty boring movie. It's like watching a heart rate monitor on a dying person that occasionally bumps up with a heartbeat. The opening has this strange and unnecessary CGI sequence, and then God and the devil talk. God is surrounded by priests with swords, as is tradition. They put so much reverb on their voices for some reason that it's kind of difficult to tell what they're saying.
From where do you come?
But basically, it's the story of Job from the Bible. The devil comes to God and is like, yo, you see that geezer over there? I bet he only likes you because you give him all this cool shit. And God's like, nah mate, honest, like you could fuck this guy's shit up and he'd still love me. So God lets the devil fuck his shit up by having the Reverend be bit by a vampire and become a vampire. The Reverend, after becoming a vampire, wants to find out more about vampires, so he goes to an internet cafe.
I'm looking for an internet cafe.
A what?
An internet cafe.
An internet fucking cafe. What the fuck is the matter with you people, eh? Whatever happened to the handshake?
He types vampire clubs outside the estate into like their equivalent of Google. And I can't, for the life of me, I cannot puzzle out this sentence. Vampire clubs outside the estate. So, okay, A, how are they going to know what estate you're talking about? And B, what is the outside here? Because he's in the estate. So why is he looking for clubs that are outside the estate? I truly, like, I've thought about this and I simply cannot decipher what the fuck he meant by that search. But anyway, this search leads him to a goth film club run by a prostitute, which he eventually becomes friends with after he kills her pimp.
For the first time in my life, I feel truly alive. With each blow, I feel a fresh bone in his face crack. Surely, this is God's work.
For some reason, a weird thing in this movie is every time someone dies, they burst into flames, seemingly for no reason. They're just normal people. They just burst into flame for some reason. The acting is pretty solid throughout. The standout performance is Harold Hicks.
Harold Hicks, I assume.
Yes, that would be alright.
The end of the movie has Harold and his clinically insane business partner
More jacket. No!
stage an illegal boxing match in a barn before they do a shady drug deal.
There is an idea of a Patrick Bateman, some kind of abstraction.
The fight is underscored by what I can only describe as traditional Irish folk rock music. At the end of the fight, Harold's goons and the crazy guy's goons all put their guns on one another. Why they do this, I have no idea, because they all agreed to have this fight, and the outcome of this fight has no consequences, not like they bet on anything. From what I can tell, the only reason they had the fight at all is because the crazy guy wanted to have a fight.
Og de kommer til at sparke dig i ansigtet senere.
Yes, exactly.
The Reverend arrives after the fight and just starts biting people. Funnily enough, he kills Harold by using a shotgun because why not? Okay, moving on. From the writer of Dinosaur Hotel 2 and the first assistant director of Dinosaur Hotel 2 comes The Curse of Jack Frost. This movie's just kind of lazy, really. While watching it, it reminded me of the Winnie the Pooh movie, and then I looked it up and it turns out that the director worked on the Winnie the Pooh movie. Those that have had the misfortune of watching the Winnie the Pooh movie know that the best thing about the Winnie the Pooh movie is the opening animation. The Curse of Jack Frost does a very similar thing, only its animation is much worse. It's these abstract charcoal drawings, I think, that makes the epic story they're supposed to be telling just feel lame. Often you have to kind of squinch to make out what's happening, and this could be really cool in like an art house movie, but in The Curse of Jack Frost, it just kind of feels out of place.
I will be back for you. One Christmas Eve when you least expect it.
Basically, a long time ago, Santa was king, but Jack Frost wanted to be king, so he went to war with Santa and butchered Santa's wife So when Santa caught him, he cut him into pieces and buried him around the world. It's now down to this one family to keep Jack Frost from acquiring the last part of himself. The part of him that they have is his hand. However, he clearly has both hands. Most of this movie is pretty well put together, with some like nicely edited moments. But then there are some just straight baffling shots. You see the camera move into position at the beginning, like it's the tail end of them resetting the camera for another take, which is so confusing because you could just cut that little camera move out and slow down the rest of it until the actors come into frame, because nothing's in the shot, so no one would notice. But the even more confusing thing is, why not just start the shot with the actors coming into frame? It's like someone edited it while they were watching it, like no one working on the film watched it twice. There's also this shot at the beginning, which just is held for like noticeably a long time. Like an obviously long, or whatever, it doesn't matter. These types of movies, this and the Winnie the Pooh movie, to me are so depressingly cynical. They're put together with such a begrudging level of competence that I'd rather they just make something really weird and strange than try to make a bog standard horror movie, because their heart clearly isn't in it. Jack Frost's mask is actually pretty good. That is until he speaks and the mouth doesn't move.
I'll need you to find it.
He's got Grinch fingers, which to me just makes him look comical. There's this VFX shot that they knew was dog shit because they only used 2 seconds of it. The writer of Jack Frost wrote 8 movies in 2022. He wrote 8 fucking movies. No wonder they turn out the way they do. This poor guy's hooked up to a milking machine for shit scripts. At the end of the film, they cover Jack Frost in fuel and light him on fire. They mime throwing gasoline on Jack because I guess the actor didn't want to get wet or something. I don't fucking know. It feels like these movies only exist to keep streaming services like Tubi and Prime Video stocked with content, which is fair enough, I guess. Everyone's getting paid at the end of the day. No one's watching it. Who cares? I just wish, no one's watching and no one cares and you're getting paid. Why not get fucking wacky with it? That's the part I don't get. Piranha 2 is a pretty interesting movie, but not because of the actual movie. The movie itself is The credits say that it was directed and co-written by James Cameron under an alias. You can tell it was written by James Cameron because the opening scene is a couple having sex in an underwater shipwreck. However, Ovidio Asinitis, I think that's how you say it, the film's producer and the other writer, only hired Cameron because the contract he had signed with Warner Brothers to make the film stipulated that it needed to have an American director. According to Cameron, Asinitis planned to fire him from the start and take over filming himself.
So the producer froze you out. You couldn't.
Oh, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
Did you have to break in?
I only directed like 8 days, and then he took over. He scheduled all the scenes with the penthouse centerfold, models for the back half of the schedule, and then fired me, promptly after 8 days of shooting. It was all this big plan.
When post-production for Piranha 2 came around, Cameron flew to Rome and had to convince Asinitis to show him the rough cut, and when he did, Cameron was horrified. So horrified that he allegedly broke into the editing room day after day to recut the movie while Asinitis was away at Cannes. But one day he was caught by Asinitis, and Asinitis recut the whole movie back to the way he had it originally. But all was not in vain, because as James Cameron had spent all his money getting to Rome, he was broke. and had to steal bread rolls from the hotel he was staying at to eat. This led to him becoming violently ill and having a fever dream where he saw a metallic torso emerging from an explosion and dragging itself over the floor, which obviously later became Terminator. After the couple having sex gets eaten by, surprise, piranhas, we get a scene that I can only describe as feeling like the start of an incest porno. A teenager returns to his hotel room in this resort where we get over-sexualized shots of his mum naked in bed, and then he jumps on top of his mum. It's just kind of weird. Also, I don't see another bed in here, and she clearly sleeps naked. Then there's this weird moment where it feels like they're about to kiss.
Stand up. I am standing.
The military have given the piranhas from the first movie wings, and now they can fly. That is basically the whole plot. They stop them by blowing up the underwater wreck, which I guess is their home. There's this scene where two hot girls, who I think killed someone, make this guy steal from his work under the promise of a threesome.
Have you ever made it with two girls?
Then trick him into jumping into the water. Then they call him an asshole. I mention this because pretty much every single scene is like this. It's an interesting idea that works as an isolated scene, but they just don't gel together to create an interesting story. Piranha 2 is kind of a write-off, but at least we got the Terminator from it, and apparently James Cameron reused the flying piranha mechanics for the face huggers in Aliens. Which one wins the B-movie standoff? Well, Piranha 2 is average in every single way. Curse of Jack Frost, it depressed me and it bored me and it made me feel like the joke was on me. You know, like it wasn't made to entertain anyone. It feels like it was just made so that when you finished it, the filmmakers could laugh in your face and go, ha ha ha, you watched this. Which means it has to be The Reverend, and honestly The Reverend wasn't that bad. Like, I thought The Reverend was really boring while I was watching it, but now I've seen the other two, and actually The Reverend is pretty good. So Reverend wins, it gets a crown or a star, probably a crown. It gets a crown, and that's really it. It's a completely meaningless prize. It's a completely meaningless endeavor, really.